Welcome to the deep dive. We take stacks of research, articles, notes, and well, we distill it all down into the key insights, the important bits, all tailored for you, our listener. And today, we're diving deep into a truly foundational story. One that shaped history. The book of Exodus. Our mission isn't just, retelling the story. It's about unpacking the bigger picture. Why these ancient events? Why do they matter profoundly for you right here, right now? Think of it as laying the groundwork, because this is actually kicking off a big exploration, a 13-week journey looking at Exodus thematically, trying to make sense of, well, all its twists and turns. Okay, so when most people think Exodus, what comes to mind? Usually Moses, right? The plagues, the Red Sea. It's this epic historical tale, and Moses is definitely huge in it, no question. But what's interesting is our sources, they point somewhere else. They actually say quite clearly this book isn't really about Moses.
Yeah, that's fascinating, isn't it? Because the real central figure, the one the whole story revolves around, is God himself. Exodus gives us this, well, incredibly deep look into who God is. He's shown as the loving Lord, a God of, love, truth, justice, freedom, forgiveness. One source even draws a line from the God we see in Exodus faithful, redeeming straight to the idea of the cross. It's powerful stuff.
So it's about his character then.
Exactly. That really shines through. You see him being incredibly faithful to his people, Israel, even when, frankly, they weren't very faithful back. He was always for them, showing mercy, giving encouragement when things got tough, correcting them when they went off track, giving that divine instruction they needed. And you have to grasp his main goal. It wasn't just some, divine checklist he was working through. No, his deep desire was relationship, a real meaningful connection with Israel.
Relationship. Oh.
Yeah, that's why he leads them to Sinai. That whole event is about establishing this deep fellowship, this covenant.
Okay, that focus on relationship. That really highlights why these specific events feel so central, so pivotal. Our sources mention the actual exodus from Egypt and that crossing of the Red Sea, calling them pivotal and unique events. Not just big moments, but God's spectacular and marvelous acts. One source actually says, and get this, no greater or more glorious event ever happened in the history of ancient Israel before the cross.
Wow.
Yeah. It even calls it the gospel, but according to Moses. Why that comparison? What makes those events so significant?
Well, that's a fantastic question because it really hits the nail on the head. These weren't just, things that happened a long time ago. We're seeing God step in miraculously, repeatedly, showing he cares, protecting the Hebrews even when they're doubting or complaining.
Right.
He leads them out with his outstretched arm, as the text says. It was completely unprecedented. These divine interventions, they kickstart this whole renewed journey with God, from slavery towards freedom.
So it's a rescue story.
Precisely. It's called the gospel according to Moses because it is about rescue. It's about a powerful deliverer stepping in to free people who absolutely could not free themselves. It sort of sets the pattern, for how God saves, how he relates to us.
That makes a lot of sense, framing it that way as a rescue, a blueprint. Okay,
Yeah.
so that brings up a really important question for us, for you listening today. Why should we, living now in such different circumstances, why should we spend time on this story from thousands of years ago? How does that ancient past connect to right now?
Yeah, and the source material speaks directly to that. It calls what happened back then an object lesson for us. It's not just history class, it's like a living example.
An object lesson. Okay.
Yeah, the research we looked at kept hitting this point. Its relevance just endures. There's a quote actually from 1 Corinthians 10:11, which our sources highlight.
Okay.
It says, "Now these things happened to them as an example, but they were written down for our instruction on whom the end of the ages has come."
So like a timeless instruction manual.
Exactly. These events are meant to be a warning, yes, but also this source of unforgettable instruction for us today.
Why, though? Our lives are so different.
Because, well, no matter how different the specifics look, our personal struggles, maybe societal issues, tricky relationships, the spiritual principles underneath, they're the same. Faith, doubt, human nature, God's patience, the longing for freedom. These things are universal.
Yeah.
They don't change. So, yeah, we should absolutely read it, study it, learn from it, the wisdom in there. It's timeless, really.
Okay, that's a really compelling case for why Exodus still matters so much. So understanding that, what does this mean for the journey we're starting together, this 13-week deep dive? How is this whole study going to, unpack that depth and power? What can you expect to get out of it each week?
Right. This is where the structure we've planned really helps, I think. We've broken Exodus down thematically, week by week, to make it digestible, but also really insightful. So you don't just hew the plot, you grasp what it means for you. We're starting right at the beginning, obviously. The first few weeks, late June through mid-July, we're calling the Genesis of Deliverance.
Okay.
We kick off week 1 with the oppression in Egypt, the background, and Moses' birth. And here's an insight. We'll see how hope starts small, not with grand gestures, but maybe with quiet acts of defiance like the midwives or a baby hidden in a basket, things we might overlook in our own lives.
Hmm.
Then
Okay.
week 2, the burning bush, God calling Moses directly. It's about how that divine call can show up unexpectedly and what it means to actually say yes. And week 3, we look at the rough start. Things get worse before they get better. We see resistance, setbacks. How does God work when things don't go smoothly? So the whole first section is about how God's plan starts moving, even amidst despair and pushback.
Right, setting the stage. Then where do we go?
Then, moving through July into early August, things really ramp up. We're calling this section God's confrontation and covenant of freedom.
Okay, confrontation. Sounds intense.
It is. Week 4 is the plagues, not just random disasters, but these targeted demonstrations of God's power over Egypt's gods, over Pharaoh, divine justice in action.
Right.
Week 5, the climax, Passover, that foundational event of salvation, of being protected by the blood. So crucial.
Absolutely.
And then week 6, the iconic moment, through the Red Sea, liberation. But it's also about how God makes a way where there seems to be no way. Sometimes, you have to go through the impossible obstacle.
Yeah, wow. That's a powerful image. So that covers God's big intervention for freedom. What's next?
So from mid-August through September, the focus shifts. We move into the wilderness and the blueprint for relationship.
Out of Egypt into the wilderness.
Exactly. Week 7, we look at the bread and water of life. God providing sustenance, manna, water from a rock. What does it mean to depend entirely on God when, well, you have nothing else?
Daily dependence.
Mm-hmm. The week 8, a huge one, covenant at Sinai. God gives the law, the 10 Commandments. This is where that relationship he wanted gets formalized. It's the framework for community, for holiness.
The foundation.
Definitely. Week 9 follows with living the law. How do these big principles apply day to day? Practical wisdom for life and community, life and freedom. And week 10, the covenant and the blueprint. The covenant is confirmed, and God gives instructions for the tabernacle. This amazing picture of God actually wanting to live, to dwell right there among his people.
Okay, so the law, the tabernacle, setting up this new life, and then the final stretch.
The final stretch, wrapping up in September, deals with some tough realities. We're calling it humanity's frailty and God's enduring presence.
Oh, frailty.
Yeah, week 11 confronts the apostasy and intercession, the golden calf incident. It's a stark look at how quickly people can turn away, but also at Moses' incredible intercession and, importantly, God's immense mercy.
Yeah, critical moment.
Hugely critical. Then week 12 gets really deep. Please, show me your glory. Moses' request, God's self-revelation. We dive into the very character of God. What does his glory look like?
Wow.
And finally, week 13, we conclude with the tabernacle being built and dedicated. It's the culmination. God's presence is now tangibly there, dwelling among them just as he desired.
That's quite a journey mapped out.
It is. And each week, like you said, we'll focus on key passages, key events, pulling out the most important nuggets for you. We've really tried to structure it so each week builds logically on the last, unfolding the layers, and just so you know, the full schedule, dates, the chapters we're covering each week. It's all detailed in the show notes for this deep dive.
Fantastic. What a profound journey we have ahead these next 3 months. Exodus isn't just some dusty old book. It really is this living testament, isn't it? Showing how God leads people from slavery, whatever form that takes, into real freedom. Revealing his character, relational, faithful, powerful. It's about liberation, yes, but also law, covenant, presence. So many lessons packed in there.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought for you as you listen and prepare for this journey. Just consider, how might this ancient story, this path from oppression to relationship, echo things in your own life, your own story, your own challenges? Are there places where you feel stuck, where you need maybe divine intervention or provision, or just a deeper sense of God's presence? This book, Exodus, it offers timeless principles for all of that. It reminds us that the God who acted then, well, he's still at work.
That's a powerful thought to end on. We really hope you'll join us for this entire 13-week deep dive. We think it's going to be incredibly rich, full of surprising insights that honestly might just change how you see history, faith, and maybe even God's guidance in your own life. You really won't want to miss it. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.